for people who don't know or are not familiar with my story, I mean, it's been everything. I mean, I've been shot at, chased through the woods, uh, kidnapped, held against my will, falsely locked away, and thrown into this place, thrown into that place. One case, I mean, they just seemed like that, and it wasn't even a part of any legal authority. It was just it was more like a, well, let's just put it this way, it was more medical, but they just won't, through different kinds of paperwork they have set up, they, well, even though it is against your will and it's unlawful, they'll still detain you and whatever, and it's just, that's called kidnapping, in case you want to know. Anyway, but all that being said, it's just been horrific, and all the unlawful and unconstitutional illegal surveillance that has been nonstop every night for 7 years and continues till this day. And even now where I'm at, which is kind of like a retirement home, although I'm one of the younger people here, I would rather and should be at home with my family. Anyway, and they, even here, they just find new ways. They try to find different ways. These people are sick, completely insane. They try to find different ways to just, forgive my language. I don't know how else to put it, but they just try to find different ways to just dick with you, and like all the stuff before wasn't enough. It has to be more to keep you in a state of whatever. But anyway, I'm still dealing with it, and it's not over yet, so we'll see what happens. But whenever I do try to explain this, I always start out with my car battery, or at least the vehicle I was driving at the time. Yeah, I guess I could call it my car for now. Anyway, and this kind of gets into why autonomous automobiles are not a good idea at all. Forget the deal. There's always two sides to the coin, people. Remember to forget the fact that they can drive themselves. Because they're control freaks. These people are sick. They are insane. So are these beings. I call them beings because forget my language, but they're just too damn evil to be called human. But anyway, they just want complete control of it. Not just detaining or holding you up in a place where you don't want to be. Anywhere that you go, they want to be able to stop you at a press of a button. And that is what is up with these autonomous automobiles as they want. They can lock you in. If you saw I think it's called Kingsman Secret Service, there was one part in that where they did exactly that. They locked, I think his name's Izzy. They locked him when he was getting ready to fight somebody. I think they goes the doors and they whisk you away to God knows where. And that's kidnapping without the kidnapper, but in all actuality, they are the kidnapper. All right, so where we were with this, this is the story I just call, my car battery. For, a period of maybe a few weeks, I always noticed, and this is kind of after they had already committed this big theft of everything we own. And we were just, a few weeks away from them eventually and ultimately stealing this very vehicle from me, and they did, it was one of those, which I had every legal right to my vehicle, and yet, and you're even parked in a lawful place and not even violating any regulations or whatever, even any street rules or any building rules for that matter, or private property rules. And yes, they ended up stealing that from me as well. And that had the last of what they were actually after was certain evidence. So what I think to be is, so I couldn't prove certain things later and after the fact, but whatever. Anyway, that's another story. But I noticed for about a 2 or 3 week period that my car battery always died. Like when I was parked somewhere, and by this time I'd have to park somewhere near a convenience store somewhere because I needed somewhere where there was a restroom and, I could get food and stuff like that. Well, the car battery ends up dying one night, and then again, I have it jumped, I drive for a while, it's charged back up, and it's fine for about 2 other places that I go to, and then it ends up dying again. And it's a new battery that was just put in here. That I had just put in the vehicle, in other words. And to make a long story short, which I'll get into further detail in this when I cover my story, or that part of my story anyway. It's actually already done. I just have to get them up there. But anyway, here's how it works. And I have to say, apparently, possibly, maybe, seemingly, could be, whatever. Here's how it works, people. Apparently, a parasite, an electrical parasite, is placed on your power source as long as the circuit directly to the source is closed. That means everything's connected. And, I can't say, because that would be giving away too much, but I can't say what made me think to disconnect the terminal from the battery. But after I did that, let's just say it didn't seem to happen anymore. And this also, they did this with an inverter circuit that we had used later to generate electricity, because they had illegally juiced our meter, which was an excuse to do this and another excuse to do that, which they later had an excuse to replace it with a smart meter. And when I say the word smart meter, you better cringe, or you should cringe if you know any better. And if you didn't cringe and you don't, God help you, you need to look into smart meters, electrical meters. We were the only property, the only home in, as far as we could drive, to have one. And that was because I lived there. I'm not even going to beat around the bush with that one. All right. Anyway, but they can put a parasite on a closed electrical circuit as long as the part to the power source is closed, and they put a drain on it. And they can kill it pretty much from anywhere. That's one of the things that was used against myself. And luckily for me, I always carried jumper cables with me, and all it took was a jump start. But I got tired of, you have to disconnect your battery everywhere you go. It's kind of a pain in the butt, But they do that. And why do they do that? Well, they want to keep you stationary so they can have time to plan out and scope the area and do what they have to or need to or whatever in their language so that they can quote unquote get you, unquote. That's the car battery. Now there's one more thing I can't really tell you at the moment what this was for, but I mean I can, I just rather not right now, but I will tell you what happened. I call this one Zapped. You know, when they turned off our electrical power, and that story is like 5 stories on its own. It was unbelievable. Like I said, people, 7 years ago, we had already been through all this stuff, fought it, been sent through the ringer for it, and everything before, and only now is everybody starting to come up and come out and see what I was talking about 7 years ago. All right, so anyway, they can sigh all they want. I don't care. I'll tell you about that later. Winds from above. Anyway, so Zapped is basically was a part of our story. This is before the grand theft of our home and everything we own took place. And we would just be sitting at home one day. Now, this is after they had disconnected the electrical from our house, because basically what I had done is I caught them juicing the meter. When you turn off the breaker and disconnect the main breaker from the home, and on an analog meter, when that thing still is spinning and won't stop, no matter how slow it is, you got a problem. I mean, you know, they're sending, you have to understand, people, they get the power for that thing from their side of the meter. It doesn't come back around, go through something on your side of the meter and then back to there. They get it from their side. And I verified that in court from the technician himself. So anyway, that'll be in another story, don't worry. That one's unbelievable regarding the electric story we had. Anyway, or what was dealt with in that. Anyway, one day, all of a sudden, well, here's what happens. Through that smart meter, they can verify a lot of stuff because everything's hooked to everything else. And it kind of provides like an in-series and parallel completed schematic. So it kind of, you know, they can get different types of pictures. I don't want to go into it, but different indications and data as well, as far as what you use, how often you use it, what room of the house you're most often in, and all that crap. Forgive my language. Well, one day the house just shook. I mean, it was like a, you know, like all the pipes were just shaking like hell. Shaking, just shaking like hell. It's a noise you've never heard before. I had never heard it before in my life. It, you know, of course, it scared my family quite a bit. I knew right away. I was just more ticked than anything. But that was like on maybe 3 or 4 different occasions, maybe 5. And that's simply because they couldn't do their little data scan with the smart meter since none was hooked up, so they had to do that, and that was the purpose for that, to try to get a reading on what we do, again, unconstitutional. Take care, everybody.